Okay.
Both Dr. Marisha and Tripti Leo.
Yeah.
I'll just call Tripti.
She's Trupti joined.
Tripti has joined, but she's not connected to the audio.
Yeah, I think she want to open from the laptop. Hello.
Yeah, no worries. I'm just calling Tripti also. Tripti. Hi Tripti, this is Ansha. So you are not connected to the audio. But I can't see your audio getting connected. Yeah, just do it. I think Dr. Marisha is also not connected to the audio, so I'll have to ask Dr. Hari. I can see you very well. You still are not connected to audio. No. It's connecting to audio, it says. Yes, it's connected now. Yeah. You have to unmute yourself. Yeah, hi Tripti.
Hi Trupti, good evening.
Hi. Good evening. Where are you, Hari? Lovely background.
I'm in the golf course.
Oh, here it's raining, pouring, south of Jayanagar.
Howದು.
But where is this? Which golf course? Bangalore or somewhere else?
KGF ನಮ್ದು.
Lucky it's not raining for you there.
ಹೌದು. ಈ ಕಡೆ ಇದೆ, ಏರ್ಪೋರ್ಟ್ ಕಡೆ ಮಳೆ ಇದೆ.
Here it's pouring. Bangalore south has been pouring.
Oh, okay.
Dr. Hari, can you call Dr. Marisha and tell her to connect her audio?
She's trying to open from the laptop. Actually, I shared the link in mobile.
Okay, no worries. Let her take her time.
Anshul, I wanted a clarification. So it is Dr. Marisha Mcavoy.
We'll have to really check with her. Maybe we can check before going live.
Or maybe I can use just a second name. Or maybe the first name should be enough because I don't want to,
Yeah, I think the first name is fine. So maybe you can say Dr. Marisha and
Dr. Marisha. Yes.
Yeah, because it's quite a tongue twisting word, Mcavoy. Yeah,
actually, and it also we do not know how does she actually pronounce.
correct. It looks like a very German word for me.
So there was a expert from Finland in our last meet.
She's trying to contact 1 minute.
Her name was Iya and her spelling was E-I-J-A.
Oh, okay.
While she used to, and it was like a tongue twister while saying that as well. Iya, Aya, Adija.
Yeah, hello.
Yes, sir.
Hello.
No, I think he's trying to connect with Dr. Marisha.
Looks like.
Marisha. Hello.
Should I call her, Dr. Hari? Dr. Marisha?
I am in Zoom now. Take care.
Yeah, you connected?
Yeah, I'm in Zoom now.
Yeah, okay.
Okay. Hi.
Hi,
Hi,
Dr. Marisha.
How are you?
You're all good. Thank you so much. How are you, doctor?
Good, 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 good. It's lovely to be here.
It's lovely weather even over here in India, in Bangalore, and lovely
I'm-
seeing you out there.
She
I'm
is
already
in
home.
India.
I'm here in India.
Oh, you're here in India. Wonderful.
Yeah. So, yeah, I live and work in Kolkata. So, and I've been in India for three and a half years.
Cool. Do you like India?
Love India.
Amazing. Now, Dr. Marisha, how do I pronounce your third name? The second or the third name?
Just Marisha Mcavoy.
Mcavoy. Okay.
Mcavoy, yeah. Yeah. So now I'm just turned my phone on silent because we don't want the phone ringing during the seminar. Is there any sound? Anybody should be talking?
No. Nobody's talking right now. We're just making it live right now. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Thank you everybody, and once again, welcome to Bringle Blended Meetups and Bringle Blended Platform. Myself, Anshav Jain, founder of Bringle Excellence Limited, UK and India, would like to welcome you on this new series, Making the Virtual World Live. We are coming up with our second session today on this Making the Virtual World Alive. And we have Dr. Marisha with us from Australia, who is going to talk about on the various technology aspects on how education industry or the blended learning can get benefited. Happy bringing to everybody, and I would like to request Tripti now to introduce herself and Dr. Marisha.
Thank you so much, Mr. Anshul. Thank you so much. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to all the participants out there around the globe. I'm from Bangalore, and I can see it's a lovely weather over here, breezy, windy, and rainy. Okay, today's engaging and insightful session is brought to you by Bringle Academy and Vision Digital India. And I want to take this opportunity to thank Dr. Maram over here to moderate the session. I'm Tripti Arvind, your moderator for today's session. I am an educationist, a counselor, a fashionista, a voice for women, and I do a bit on women empowerment as well. Just on the verge of completion of my doctorate in human resource management. That's enough of me. But today we have a very, very, very wonderful and a very interesting speaker in our session. She is highly, highly qualified and highly experienced in her arena. When I got an introduction, it was like for 10 pages, and I was wondering, how do I cut it short? But due to the time constraint, I had to definitely cut it short and bring it down to 1 page. I wouldn't be doing definitely any justice by giving her introduction or by reading out her bio. My apologies, Dr. Marisha, but then cut it down. I had to cut it down for a few lines or a page or so. I'm so sorry. Moving ahead. It's been a pleasure having amongst us Dr. Marisha Mcavoy. She is a professional higher education academician and leader who leads strategy in quality and excellence across global undergraduate and postgraduate higher education. Dr. Marisha is highly experienced in trans-global higher education leadership, quality assurance, and strategic direction of higher education in Australia, UK, India, and across other countries. She has received recognition as Senior Fellowship of the Higher Education Academy in UK and a Special Award winner for Engineering Education. Dr. Marisha has an outstanding knowledge of higher education policy and legislation in Australia, UK, New Zealand, USA, Canada, India, and so on. Her key capabilities are to establish and execute strategy in higher education, driven leader in higher education policy and framework development, project management, research and development, and the list goes on and on and on. She has an amazing and interesting line of qualification for her credit. She is a doctorate, PhD from Queensland University of Technology. She is also an ME from University of Melbourne. She is B International Architect, honors that too, from University of South Australia. She's also interesting, look at this, she's also a maxillofacial surgeon from Royal Melbourne Institute of Technology. And her professional experience includes, currently she is in the leadership roles as Chief Academics and Quality System at NSHM Group of Institutions, Kolkata. She was also a director for India, Nepal, and Sri Lanka in 2018-19 for higher education. She was also a Dean Director of Strategic Planning and Communication for 2017 and 18 at School of Design, Jaipur, India. Not only this, she has a passion as well. She volunteers in lots and lots of organizations. She's been volunteering in United Nations for Women, Engineers Australia, Australian Space Design Competition, ISRO, NASA, European Space Agency, etc., etc. Ma'am, this is a humble introduction of mine to yours. I know I would have done 0.0001% of the justice of the introduction, few pages that you had sent across. We welcome you, ma'am, and over to you, Dr. Marisha.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. It's truly a pleasure. And when you say all these things, I feel humbled, and I think it took a lot of work. So yeah, I just look. It's good morning, good evening, and good night to many people across the planet, and it's an absolute delight to be here. Dr. Hari and I have been friends for, I think, almost 3 years now since I first came to India. So as a brief background, I came to India to contribute to higher education because obviously I, from my background, I've done work across the Western world, but I'd never really felt complete because considering that much of the world, India contributes to so much of the world's economy, of education, of knowledge, of intellect. It's amazing. So, I took a leave from Australia and came here to India to be able to understand higher education, understand the frameworks, understand the challenges that many of our students face. It's interesting because this COVID-19 has opened up a big basket of complexities. How do we deal with the negative elements of COVID-19? How do we deal with the internationalization, the closing of borders, and now hopefully the opening of borders? But in all of this, we have people from abroad, people from, in India, we have a number of expats who live here, and myself being one of them. And then in Australia, we have, literally hundreds of thousands of Indian students. So how do they actually live and survive away from their families when essentially there's relatives, there's mothers, there's fathers, there's aunts and uncles worried across the globe. So how do we manage that? In answering Dr. Hari's invitation to come and talk, I was thinking about what have we learned? What are the things, the key elements that we understand from COVID-19? What can I possibly bring to the table in my knowledge and understanding of global contexts? And I'd like to see that international education can be very much improved, and international education can be truly, truly globalized through all of this. I see COVID-19 as being an opportunity to learn from, each other and contributing to each other in the different ways that we do things. So in closing, I think it's important for everybody across the globe to consider that every country has its own context. Every country can contribute in their own unique and special way to higher education. So I'd like to thank Dr. Hari for having me and everybody here, having me here, and I'll speak a little bit more in a few moments. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Marisha. It was such a wonderful to know about your thoughts and your love towards India, which we have seen. And you know, if you can just say a few words in Hindi to everybody, whatever you want to share with the Indians out here.
I only need to have a few words of Hindi, only Tora Hindi, but not much. I don't speak very much. I can understand a lot more than I can speak. But if I'm to ask people here from the east of India, I would say Gamona Chen. And you know, it's just some little words. I don't want to embarrass myself by perhaps trying to say one thing and mean something completely different.
Got it. I mean, thanks for you know, accepting my request, Dr. Marisha. It is so kind of you. Thank you so much. And Dr. Hari, I would like you to, you know, kind of request you if you can speak few words about Dr. Marisha and what is this virtual series all about and is going to benefit whom?
Sure, Lisa.
Sir, you are unmuted already.
Good evening, friends. Thanks for joining live as well as through our social media platforms. It is wonderful to have Dr. Marisha to be part of our 10 weeks webinar series. That is a transformation, digital transformation, talking about technology, talking about the global educational developments. So today we are fortunate to have a very good friend of mine, Dr. Marisha, to be part of this webinar, and she's into education from more than 2 decades and working on different projects, international projects, working on technology, on digital transformation, whatnot. So today I think definitely we will have a great learning experience from her. And thanks, Trupti. Trupti Rao is from Bangalore, joined as an esteemed moderator today to take forward this webinar discussion forward. So on the behalf of Bringil and Vision Digital India, I welcome each one of you to be part of this wonderful series of digital transformation. And we are going to have a lot more speakers from across the globe in coming weeks, and wishing a great success of this series and take advantage of this series. And we will be looking forward to having a digital blended convocation on August 15th after completion of all the 10 series of these webinars. And that is going to be a first in its kind, having a blended kind of convocation in multiple places across the world. And each participant will be receiving a global digital transformation diploma, unlike the e-certificates and the certification certificate. So wishing you great success and looking forward for great learnings from Dr. Marisha. Thank you. Thank you for this opportunity.
Thank you so much, Dr. Hari. Thanks, Dr. Marisha. Firoz Bhai, if you are there and if you can just give a quick glimpse on about the industry, the education industry in Kuwait and Middle East. How is that coming up and dealing with in the post-COVID scenario from the technology point of view?
There are a couple of industries here in Kuwait, the education, where partially the online learning is there, but they are coping up. Unlike Dubai, where they are quite ready. So March and April, and May was a difficult month. But now what's happening is in June, July, and August, there is a bit of closure here. So we are waiting for the right opportunity to connect with them and seek an update. But yes, they are very much open to online learning, and the transformation which is going to happen now is yet to be seen. But yes, the beauty about this part of the region is they are very much technology savvy, and they will be very quick to adopt and transit into this form and get into the new phase of the COVID and adapt to the changes. Some changes will be on choice, some changes will be on compulsion.
Thank you so much, Feroz Bhai, and that's Feroz Bhai talking from as a founder of Business Causeway and is situated at Kuwait. With this, I would like to request each and every participant, listener to please go and register at bringelacademy.com/workshop/148 for the next sessions. We are now going offline as this is a private, this session which is going to be done by Dr. Marisha is going to be private within our internal video conferencing solution. And this is what we'll be, going through and converting that into a digital transformation diploma, and will be handed over the certificates to all the participants who will be doing there. We are already got recognized by various international universities, and we are getting this diploma getting recognized by other universities as well. So Digital University USA, Bringle Academy, United Kingdom, both have kind of recognize this digital transformation series. So please go and register yourself. The link is available on the live comments. You can also go to bringelacademy.com/workshop/148. With this, I would say keep bringing, keep growing, and we'll come back to it next week again. And Dr. Marisha, please be there. We'll be waiting for a scintillating session there now after this.
Thank you.
So yes, Dr. Marisha, we are offline now. We can you can now share your screen and actually start your session. So
Take it.
great.
Thank you so much. Just let me. My computer's a little bit slow. There we are. Yeah, I think it's important to start with an acknowledgement of Dr. Hari and the contribution that he's been making and he's been trying to do for all of the years that I've known him. Dr. Hari has long been an aspirant towards digital education, online educational, virtual learning. And I think that that's really important. I believe that the COVID-19 has provided for us so many opportunities to be able to bring global education to any organization, and in particular to India. I believe that the world has begun to understand the opportunities that we have through places like, through networks like Zoom, through learning communities and everything else. So let's, without further ado, let me continue.
Something which I very rarely do.
So I can hear somebody on the background talking. I'm not sure whether anybody else can hear me. But anyway, let's start. So when we're considering all of this, I'm going to talk broadly about internationalization and strategy, but also in the context of how do we actually bring the global community to our students? How do we bring the global community to our organizations? I've been doing Zoom for many years, and it seems like many organizations have just begun to understand Zoom and the opportunities that they present across the globe. And in my current organization, I'm talking about how can we get high caliber people from across the globe to contribute to the local context. That means that any student in Jharkhand or in Bihar or, you know, any of these remote villages have the opportunity for a global education. So many people want to be able to, you know, aspire to go abroad, to go and learn and understand different contexts. But I think now this opportunity is that it's come to our institutions, actually into our institutions, where we can engage and connect with these people. So we need to understand the situation and consider, you know, in terms of these MOUs, Memorandum of Understandings for our needs, we need to consider, you know, how will we actually get people to connect and how will we understand that? And then, of course, implementation is making things happen. So in all of this, what we need to do is understand that still many people prefer the face-to-face. Many people prefer to go to somewhere to see somebody live. I think that this situation, this scenario, and overnight, literally overnight, I transformed our institution from fully face-to-face to fully online. But it was also about considering the opportunities we have for broader contexts. So what possibilities, what potentials do we have to enable our students, you know, from the poorer communities, from the more remote communities, to have, you know, an engaged access in synchronous ways, so in connected live ways online with these international guests. How do we understand the parities and the differences between this kind of access? And how do we offer that high quality student experience regardless of their background? We've opened up the doors of the global context, but how do we enable our students to best learn? So in this context, we're looking at, you know, the learning and teaching methodology. If you are going to get somebody from across the planet, you need to think about this as a potential marriage. You know, the organization, does it match? Does the teaching and learning methodology and the way that they do things match in the way that we do things here? When I first came to India, I was quite naive because I believed that, you know, many things were comparable, and in fact they're not. We have different semesters than in the Southern Hemisphere. We have different semesters in the US and Canada than we have here in India. And also we have different ways of doing things. For many students, it's very, very difficult to get them to understand, you know, even a questioning in the classroom, even challenging beliefs and challenging understandings. So in terms of the teaching and learning methodology, you need to have a look at the organization and say, do the academics there, do the faculty there understand the ways that we're doing things here? Like, for example, it's all very well and good to match up with, say, MIT, but MIT may well be too far above in terms of cognitive understanding, too far above for many of our students, you know, especially at the regular colleges, affiliated colleges, some of the universities, all the rest of it. So you really have to make sure that there is a cohesive match. There's no point in getting people that are international if the pitch, if the language that they use, if, you know, even English is too far above the context. Looking at the areas of development, does it fit with your organization and India's development goals? What are we anticipating with the new education policy? So the NEP looks at advancing online, advancing blended learning, advancing concepts like critical thinking. Now, we need to consider the new education policy, and then we have a look at these organizations and how do they marry well with and understand India's development goals. many organizations fail to understand India's context. You have to understand that many international universities and people see India as maybe Delhi or maybe Mumbai, and they understand that India is obviously very a spiritual place, but they don't understand the local context. They don't understand that, you know, how poor is poor? What is the class divide? You know, what are the divides in different cultures? What are the divides between and the different languages between, you know, the different states? For example, when I say to people in Australia, you know, I speak Thora Hindi, some Hindi and some Bengali, and they're like, Bengal doesn't exist anymore. And I say, no, it is. It's a state, and it's also a culture, and it's also a language, and it's a whole area. So many people don't understand India in its broad complexity. It is as complex and more as Europe is. You know, you go across different borders and you have a whole context that is completely different. Like, for example, coming from Rajasthan to West Bengal is like chalk and cheese. You know, it's like going from, I don't know, the Balkans, going from Ukraine to London. You know, it is really that different. So you really need to consider that. How do you connect the dots seamlessly? You know, how do you set up a relationship, a global and international relationship, especially in the teaching and learning context? How do you set it up for good relationships? People have to be prepared when they're teaching online or when they're giving online classes in India. You have to understand that, you know, the issues that we have with connectivity, it's the issues we have with people, you know, if you say that something starts at 6, it can be, you know, 10 past 6, quarter past 6, whatever. And also people from international context need to understand that it isn't like you know, everything's set to a watch and this happens and then this happens and this happens. You have to understand that these things, there has to be a bit of jugaad added into the mix, and people have to understand that context as well. One of the key points that I have in all of this, and I facilitated quite a number of MOUs between institutions, you need to be aware that there are different reasons why organizations create MOUs. There's those that want to focus on quality, but then there's those that have the MOU collections, and then they will list all of these on their websites. We've got this university. What's the point in having an MOU if it doesn't actually contribute to the on-the-ground faculty, the students, the benefit to the academic community in your context? So you really need to think about quality versus quantity. You don't want to be an MOU collector just for the sake of it. It's about creating good quality relationships. And it's thanks to University of Calgary, who have provided a good model for showing the overall internationalization strategy. When you're setting up these contexts and thinking about internationalization, the key to there's several keys to a success. You need to consider that within your academic environment, it's always good to get a broader context. It's always good to expose our students and students from all over the country in any caste, class, social standing, etc., getting them to understand the broader context, but it's also just as important that the international people understand and recognize our students here, understand our youth here, understand the desires, the demands that they have, their wishes, their goals for the future. They are the future of this country. So in considering anything for a strategy in your institution, you need to consider that internationalization has to be the academic priority. You can no longer consider just your own context. It has to be that global context and global understanding. the strategy has to be clear and focused. You need to have a goal and stick to it. What do we want to get out of this MOU, out of this reciprocal partnership? Reciprocal partnerships, I can talk in the future about reciprocal partnerships, but there's a whole range of MOUs that work on different levels. Dynamic and passionate leadership. So that comes, the dynamic and the passionate leadership starts from the top level and right down to every faculty who is leading in the class. Having that dynamic relationship between your students, the content, and the global person who is contributing is really, really important. Being passionate about seeing the world as a wider, in some ways, a broader context, but also in other ways as it right here in your in the palm of your hand. So you really need to be dynamic and passionate about, you know, about that global context. Say, for example, your institution has set up an MOU. If the faculty are not engaged at their level or in that MOU, then they won't be dynamic, they won't be passionate, they won't lead the way forward for the students to demonstrate that global integration in their teaching and learning curriculum and also the pedagogy. The faculty need to own this. They need to own programs and own projects. If you can start an MOU that starts the faculty, that gives them so much agency and ownership over their own projects, that allows that in global context, it then helps to add to that dynamic and passionate leadership. And of course, in an international context, you've got, and I'm starting to bring it here, we've got three key areas within academia. Within academics, you have a triadic relationship: teaching, research, and service. So teaching, you know, is a fundamental element of any higher ed organization. Research, and that research may be just the scholarship of teaching and learning, but that research has to be integrated into it. And also service. What does it give back to the internal community, and what does it service the external community? The contemporary organizational structure is understanding how international universities work and how their organizational structure works, and then how they understand how things work here. For example, one of the many things that I've learned here in India is that the Vice Chancellor of many universities abroad are very, very accessible. They'll walk about, they'll go for coffee, you'll see them in the coffee store, the coffee shop in the campus. They'll be walking about, they will be chatting to somebody, they'll have a meeting outside, they will, you know, in a coffee shop or in a restaurant or whatever on campus. And you can greet them, say, for example, a friend of mine who's the Vice Chancellor at Melbourne Uni, you know, I can call out and say, "Hey, Duncan, how are you going?" And it's a very loose, very flat structure. But whereas if somebody wants to access a Vice Chancellor here in this organisation, it requires, you know, going through a whole screening, you know, waiting for an appointment, and it's a very hierarchical method. So understanding this kind of structure is really, really important in any relationship. And looking at innovative and sustainable funding models. If you're going to create a project together, how do you actually consider different ways in which you will get funding? Like, say, for example, you want to bring global education to, say, for example, a village in Rajasthan. How would you do that? You know, obviously, if you want teachers to come from abroad and spend some short time in teaching in that program, how do you actually consider different models of funding to enable that to occur? Obviously, flights are expensive, you know, accommodation is expensive. Well, it's expensive for international people that expect a high standard. I mean, but if you're at the lower level, it's obviously much cheaper. But if you're getting international people to come from abroad, how do you actually get the funding to be able to do that? So at some point in the relationship, you have a global connection, which is far easier and far accessible. But what happens when you actually want to bring people here, both short-term and long-term? You don't want somebody to come here for 5 minutes and then the relationship ends there. You want a sustainable long-term relationship. And I've always said, I will always say, and I am very much into strategy. And of course, a key element of strategy is implementation. So how do you make these global relationships work? In your international strategy, what you want to do are some of the key elements that you want as part of that. Ways of understanding, even the diverse ways of communication in the class. The most peculiar thing to me was when I first came here, I'd walk into a classroom and then all these students would jump immediately. Oh, morning, ma'am, all in a chorus together. I'd never had that in my life. And it was quite a odd thing to me. And then I would try to engage in a two-way dialogue with students. Oh, what do you think? What is your critique of this? And they would just be mute. They'd be, Mum, no, you're right, ma'am. And even if I'd said completely the wrong thing, they would still say, you're right, ma'am. So in terms of understanding that diversity is so important in understanding how do you speak to students? How do you encourage that diversity? Improving cross-cultural competencies, again, it's about that communication, ways of thinking, the ways of understanding, the way that they feel they can share their ideas and their fears and their frustrations in the classroom is incredibly important. Those cross-cultural competencies are important for the future of this country in how our future generations really start to engage in dialogue that does have that critical debate and that critical understanding in understanding different ways of doing things. Obviously, increasing your educational and research partnerships. I mean, people tend to think that that's just the only part of an international strategy is I just want to increase my international research partnerships or international education partnerships. It's about international development. And by that, I mean, you will be surprised. I don't want to bring the Australia to India and make it just another copy of Australia. We have so many international students in Australia who we fail them. We don't understand them. We don't understand the context. They don't understand the daily struggles that they have. Just in some cases, the clothes that they wear, the people that they speak to. I think what international development means to me is that Australia and New Zealand and Canada and US all start to open their minds about India and understands our international context, and they develop. As much as India can develop, we know that. But how much can international organisations really start to develop their mind in a broader way of thinking? Understanding, for goodness sakes, that there are so many different languages and so many different foods across India. There's so many different types of understandings of everything. I think to think that India is just this small nation that eats dals and chapatis and that's about it, or otherwise just speaks a little bit of English and Hindi. And I think that it's important for us to actually consider we need to develop other countries' understanding of India. That's particularly important for me. In this, you're thinking about what countries are important to your organization. And I know quite a number of universities who are MOU collectors. And they have this country, this country, this country, this country, this country listed. But if you ask them what is important to the organization, or all of them, ma'am, all of them, but you should have countries of interest and countries of emphasis. So if you're thinking about India and where you can get a strong connection and an understanding between our students here and the pedagogy, the curriculum and pedagogy that you teach within your organization, how do you know, which of the countries you want to have an emphasis and a stronger connection with, and which countries do you want to have some sort of interest in? Obviously, you know, like if you want to have an interest in, say, for example, in the way that Australian and New Zealand higher education is, but your key country of emphasis is actually Canada. Those two are very different because, of course, we have a different delivery method, we have different semesters, we have different structures, we have different understandings, different regulatory bodies, and in Australia it's extremely different. So you need to consider what are important, which ones are going to be those that you have an emphasis on, and which ones are you interested in. So what is required in a post-COVID-19 world? Prior to COVID-19, I think that we lived in a world that dreamed of inclusion, equity, and opportunity. I think that we often talked about it, but I don't believe we often did it. And I think that it's the, you know, talking, you know, if you're going to talk the talk, you walk the walk. And I think even in all of this lockdown period here in India, and I've been here since the start, and, you know, given a few hours to go at lockdown, all the rest of it, you know, we transitioned overnight in our institution because I already had prepared it. I was keeping an eye on the rest of the world. I pretty much had an indication of what was going on. And I had a fair indication that we were going to go into lockdown. I wasn't sure how long or what would happen, but I thought to myself, well, if they're doing it, they're doing it, they're doing it, they're doing it, is surely going to happen here. So overnight, I transitioned. I'll admit I made a massive assumption by saying that 100% of this will be successful because we're already prepared, we have the right tools, synchronous, asynchronous, all the rest of it. I didn't consider the poorer communities. Say, for example, we have a campus at Dugapur, which is about 3 hours northwest. And they're definitely, they're from a steel city, so it's a very industrialized city. And then the outlining areas, we have students from engineering, and they're usually from a poorer community in Bihar and the neighboring states. And I didn't consider how much they would be affected. I didn't consider our students from Nepal, how they would be affected. I just assumed that everybody would have access to synchronous and asynchronous teaching and learning. So I think for me, it was a very humbling experience to consider, you know, Marisha, you didn't really think of this. You didn't actually think about inclusion, equity, and opportunity for every single student. So we've worked hard on that. I think in terms of inclusion and belonging, every student should feel like they're part of a global community. If you're going to create those partnerships, they should feel that they are actually part of this global learning community. It should be, you know, student to student, it should be institution to institution. There should be some real collaboration there to enable the student to feel like they are contributing to this class. They are belonging to this class. They are belonging to a global community. Equal access and opportunities to participate. That's the key thing, you know, like, do you want to get somebody who's so famous and so arrogant teaching a course that they would never actually take the time to ask the students questions and take the time to allow the student to actually voice their question, given, you know, sometimes the language issues and given their shyness and all the rest of it. So we need to be able to ensure that every student feels part of this community. Treating everybody equally. A student from a village somewhere or a poor community somewhere should be treated just as equally as if they were at Harvard or Stanford or Cambridge or Oxford. Everybody needs to be treated equally in order to become successful. Every student should be able to have access to these global opportunities, no matter their location. How do you make that happen? Through a lot of trial and error, I've discovered. You know, there's no one answer, there's no one size fits all, but we're trying, and that's what counts. And opportunity for reciprocal relationships. And when I say reciprocal relationships, is what are we gaining from the partnership, but what are they gaining back? And as I said, global development, this means that people will get a broader, a better understanding, a deeper understanding of India and its culture, and of course how these students can eventually go out and be in the world and be part of it. So our MOUs, there's two sorts, basically, two sorts of levels of MOU. There's the university, the high level, and then there's the department level. I've always said to people that the university agreement is great and fine and well and good, and it's a gesture. But I think that the department level MOU actually works better to benefit all. You know, benefits faculties, benefits research, benefits students, and I think that's really important. And then you need to just, think about what MOU is best. You know, is it dual degree models or potential? I mean, I know that India doesn't offer these dual degrees just yet. I think that will be coming very soon. Articulation programs, how do we actually consider the students might articulate into a program there? Faculty-led group study programs, can they come across to India and then come and participate in, 3 or 4 weeks of the semester being immersed in the classroom, and how the on-the-ground learning can benefit the students in the classroom? Or could it be short-term training programs or international development programs? It's a case of understanding before you start what are the best elements that you want that are going to work best for you. Signing on a high-level MOU is pointless unless you have goals of what you want to do and how you want to do it. Integrating with that triadic relationship, research, teaching, research, and service. So it allows, allowing for alternative ways of thinking and educational delivery, not to recreate the same thing, but to provide a different mindset. Provide something that neither organisation has already, but allows you to access and achieve. The beneficial elements of the MOU needs to enable people at the ground level to participate in this MOU. And also providing synchronous and asynchronous teaching and learning. So what can we get out of the teaching and learning and the synchronous and asynchronous? Synchronous is being live like this, and asynchronous means that you see it later on and you can access all the rest of it. Synchronous is really important for a two-way conversation, agency interaction, And asynchronous allows for you to ponder over and read something and reread it, re-watch it, etc. So how do we make these things work? Plan, 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 plan. I say this all the time, plan, plan, plan. You need to plan, prepare, develop over a period of time. Thinking about this as part of a social opportunity, so we connect with each other, we share knowledge, understanding, but it's also a cognitive opportunity. What can we learn from this? What can we understand? What can we each get from this reciprocal partnership? Not merely information transmission or branding. That's the worst thing. Using MOUs merely for branding is not useful really to anybody. If a student sees an MOU with an institution and then sees all these MOUs and they come to the institution, they want to actually engage with the people you do have MOUs with. So you need to walk the walk and talk the talk. If you say you're going to do an MOU with an institution and it's very strategic, it's very planned, everything, you are talking the talk, but then you need to walk the walk to make this happen. Also, then you need to consider the elements to be shared, but the kind of interactions important to the organization, like what kind of, do you want interactions during the semester? Do you want projects? Do you want face-to-face elements? At particular times, this is difficult in this current climate, but planning that ahead. What kind of interactions are important for the organisation? How will they be facilitated? If they're just facilitated between VC and VC, it will never happen. It's just something that's on paper that these people may talk once in their lifetime, maybe twice. But if it's not a functional departmental level MOU, chances are that the two will probably never meet each other ever again. The complexity of the design and decision-making process. The implementation considers who's going to make the decisions. If I want somebody to come over here, how easy will it be? How difficult will it be? Like for example, if you want to get a Dean of Engineering across from a Canadian university, whatever, it will take months and months and months in advance to organise. Whereas if you want a faculty to come across, you could probably organise that even within, given the right time period, you could probably, sometimes it takes a month maybe to organise, maybe less. So consider what you're requiring. But your aim's to build a learning community. You're learning from each other right from the top level, right the way down into the student interactions with other students abroad, with their faculty abroad, with people that, eminent people. We need to build this learning community. And we have these environments that are flexible, inclusive, and student-centered. So at all times, the MOU at this level should be student-centered to enable that global mindset. In all of it, stakeholders, always stakeholders. You need to consider in this relationship, in this MOU, who are involved and why and how and for how long. You've got the governance of the organisation. Obviously, there's the contracts, you've got various risks assessments, like many international organisations will do a risk assessment, all the rest of it. So that needs to be done at the highest level. But also your organisation has to understand, what are we going to get out of this? So this is where the governance would be actually strategically thinking about what am I going to get out of this MOU? How do we set it up? How do we design this MOU? The learners are critical to this, and the learners aren't just the students. The learners are the faculty, the learners are the deans, the directors, and the learners should also be the vice chancellors. So what are we all learning from each other? Faculty are important. Faculty often facilitate these partnerships at the ground level. Okay, they're the ones that can tell you week 6 of the semester, okay, we can get this person in or this person in, this person in. They'll go up to the governance or to the leaders, the leadership team, and they'll say, how can we make this happen? And of course, end of the day is support, IT support. How do we make that happen? IT support is ensuring that there's going to be, especially in these kind of like Zoom sessions, etc. How do you actually make sure that we're going to have a seamless digital session that's not going to drop in and out, just like was happening. I'm glad you didn't ask me last week, Dr. Harry, to do this, because the COVID, the cyclone provided a few challenges for us. In any partnership, in any relationship, there should be always cohesion, coherence, and connectedness. Tinto describes that there are 3 aspects of learning communities: the shared knowledge, shared knowing, and shared responsibility, indicating a mutual dependence in the learning community. And I say the learning community is higher education, is education. We're all a part of this learning community. And especially, I've said to my students, I've said to everybody, these are so important during this lockdown. Community anxiety, connecting to each other, what has become so, I've been doing online learning and blended learning since 2003. And I've always said that you need the social connection. You need to see each other. I live by myself. My husband lives abroad. He comes back and forth, obviously not at the moment, but coming back and forth and all the rest of it. I don't have a maid who comes. I don't have any assistant who comes and helps me. I do everything myself. It's a kind of foreigner's way of doing things. But it had been 67 days that I didn't see another human face to face. That connectedness, I have to admit, when I was picked up by my driver, I was like, Jadam, come on, Jen, bala. So excited to see another human. And then I got to work. I talked to all of my guards, all of the cleaners, all of the housekeeping staff, everyone. And it's like, it was so good to be connected physically, seeing each other. You have the mask on, but the smile in your eyes and connecting with each other is so important. So think about that in all relationships that we have in our MOUs and the connections, the strategy or connections of internationalization. How do we actually connect on that human level? And that was really, really important to me, that human connection. And understanding new worlds in the context of teaching and learning, just bringing it back. How do we actually plan this? How do we do our blended learning? How do we think about maybe block port delivery? Like you may have somebody accessing, coming from a global community, either online or face-to-face. How do you actually decide that you might want to cover a couple of weeks content in 3 or 4 days? So how could you actually put all that together, get the students in a learning community together and do it over 3 days? That's block 4. The reflective practitioner and learner, like who am I as a teacher and who am I as a learner in this global community? What can I learn from a professor from, I don't know, Belgium? Of course, I can learn different ways of doing things, and being humble enough to say, oh, look, I know a lot about teaching and learning, but what can I learn from them? I'm always learning. So SOTL, so the Scholarship of Teaching and Learning. I'm part of a global, as I was introduced, part of a global organisation, which is the Higher Education Academy. And we all participate in the Scholarship of Teaching and Learning and contributing globally. So that's really important, is understanding who I am as part of the teaching and learning community. But in your partnership, in your strategy for internationalisation, how are you part of a global community of scholarship of teaching and learning? And of course, the academic experience, what's in it for the students? What makes for a great learning experience? Having somebody merely coming online on Zoom and then just flicking through things and giving a very dry lecture without giving you know, anecdotes about their own world, about their own existence, about, you know, peppering things with, you know, examples actually makes it really interesting, because that's what's in it for the students. They're understanding global context different ways. It's not the knowledge in the PowerPoint, but it's the understanding of how others, you know, act and interact in different contexts. And the communities of practice, I mean, that's a core element of an MOU. As communities of practice, an MOU should always have that support from each other and for each other. And I think this COVID-19 has really helped everybody in a global level reach out to each other. And there's never been so many webinars in all of my existence of the world of knowing, so many webinars. And I think that's great, because we're all connecting with each other, we're all sharing with each other. And Dr. Hari actually knows that I always try to share and contribute to the global teaching and learning community. So on that level, it's been fantastic. Track your goals in your strategy, in your internationalization strategy, in your strategy for teaching and learning. Always track your goals. What did we want to achieve? Make sure that you're always remaining on track. You want to enhance your learning and participation. You want to encourage dynamic engagement. You want to monitor the building of skills and knowledge. Of course, there has to be a purpose. There has to be real outcomes from this. And evaluate processes and outcomes, you know, what's working for us, what's not working for us in this global strategy. And monitoring things is incredibly important, like keeping the goals in mind, but bear in mind, you know, like short term, I wanted to achieve this, long term, I want to achieve that. Staying on track, but have a designer's mind. You will have to adapt and change. Like, for example, as I said, the transition of teaching and learning completely online. For us, it was synchronous and asynchronous, but I had to just keep revisiting what had we planned, but then I had to obviously do some changes and some iterations along the way. So that was really, really important. I also documented all innovative elements we had and issues we had. And that's going to come together in a paper that I'm currently writing. And I think that'll be very, whilst it'll be like nothing new for people here in India, I think it'll be a huge eye-opener to people from abroad about the Indian context. And having weekly points. I have weekly checkpoints with all my faculty, all of my class representatives, have weekly drop-in sessions for the students. Takes a lot of work, but it's okay. And using self-reflection and critical evaluation as a daily checkpoint to remain on track. With anything, we have to consider, is this working? Is it not working? What's my role in all of this process? So I think that's really, really important. Remaining on track, especially with these global relationships, which can be a bit tenuous at times. You know, things shift and change dramatically, like, say, for example, in the US, like one moment you may have everything be peaceful and orderly and all the rest of it. Next minute, you may have mass riots. And then, you know, whether things aren't addressed one week may need to be addressed the next. So, you know, like say, for example, if you're holding a class on global politics and a class had prepared, you know, week by week, we would do this, this, and this, and this. Hypothetically, you're getting somebody from MIT or Stanford or whatever. And in the middle of the semester, these riots have happened. How do you actually adjust? You know, how do you actually reflect on your own understanding of Black Lives Matter? But then how do you actually adjust and change to that? So it's about adapting, understanding who you are in the global context as well. So on that note, I've finished. Thank you. I hope I wasn't too boring for you. This is my email address. So if anyone wants to contact me, feel free. So I think that I will hand back now to other people.
Yeah, thanks, Dr. Marisha. It was a wonderful session. So by the way, we didn't sleep. I was actually very actively listening and see what I've written. I've got so many pearls of wisdom from you. So I was actually writing it out, and because you were sharing a lot of really great insights. And especially I liked what you mentioned about self-reflection and critical evaluation, and how goal setting and monitoring is very, very important. I think this we have to teach our students, faculties right from very early on, because we keep having those kind of aspects in the corporate, but we haven't seen those things in the educational ecosystem today.
Yeah, I agree.
Brilliantly shared on that. I think I will not I will ask others to ask their questions if they have. Then I will ask my questions to you, Dr. Marisha.
Everyone might be asleep.
No, I think they're kind of just absorbing this too much, too good information, I would say. So, Dr. Hari, I see you are back.
You're on mute, Dr. Hari. You're on mute.
Let me unmute it.
Not at my office. I am at the hotel in UB City.
Oh, always somewhere in transit, aren't you, Dr. Hari?
But I was following even during driving.
Yes,
I was just wonderful, Dr. Marisha. It is a pleasure to have a interaction with you and listening to your thoughts on the digital transformation.
Thank you. Thank you. Does anyone else have any questions? Does anyone have any questions? Pleasure.
Geeta, you have any questions for Dr. Marisha? Just a moment. I think you're on mute. Yes, Geeta, you are unmuted.
So no questions as of now. Very interesting, and we're just absorbing all the information you're sharing, your experiences with us. So that's been the greatest thing. So we just want to be with that.
Thank you.
No questions as of now.
Great. Great. So, Dr. Marisha, if I can kind of just put it out. So we have this, what do you say, tradition or on Bringle Blended learning platform, that we always capture pulse of wisdom of the speakers' sessions. So I am going to read out what I have written it, and do tell me if I can add some more, because these are going to go for the people, for the audience to share this as a pulse of wisdom. So first point which I mentioned about is evolution on parity and differences. I think you've spoken a lot about how it has to be very parity based with respect to age, caste, creed, and different economic conditions as well. You have put up a lot of focus over there, and that shows your love towards and passion towards education. So I really appreciate on that part of it.
Thank you.
You also spoke about L plus T methodology and how do you both match together. Now, L plus T, what is this L plus T, if you can give a little more
learning and
clarity on
teaching.
that?
Learning and teaching. Yeah.
Oh, learning and teaching. And okay, great. How do you think the technology is going to play an important role over there in terms of, because of the post-COVID scenario, everything is going to go online, but just coming onto a Zoom session or a video conferencing session is not going to be enough. So how do you think that learning is going to change now?
In India or abroad?
I think I would say everywhere now, because this is going to be the new mode of learning now.
Yeah. I think let's talk about learning and teaching. It's funny because those who used to teach online, just used to think that you get your face-to-face class and you just teach it exactly the same online. And how much have I heard recently about Zoom fatigue? So I think what has changed and what will change is the comprehension of of this Zoom fatigue, of online fatigue. How do we actually teach something in a, getting core concepts and actually putting across those core concepts? So in terms of the teaching, I think people will start to have far less waffle and far more dedicated and succinct, shorter bursts of teaching. And I think, as a result of that, and of people's experience of learning, they've actually thought, well, I've just listened to, somebody talk for 2 hours, but that could have been cut down to like 10 or 15 minutes. And so people are then going to be quite, the learners, I think, will demand a more succinct kind of delivery. And, they're going to require quality over quantity. And I think that will be a key element of what changes in the teaching and learning abroad. It will be far, far, far more quality over quantity.
Absolutely. I think that is for your another point, quality versus quantity. And how did you talk about the MOU collections part? I literally love that, that everybody is just talking about collecting some MOUs, that we are this, we are that, we are that. But ultimately what matters is there could be quality in one MOU, and that can be more impactful for everybody, and that is more interesting, important, rather than looking at just collecting some agreements and which has no value out of it. It's actually a junk. So very nicely you have shared that part.
Thank you.
Connecting dots seamlessly, and especially for setting up the good relationships. You also mentioned about how the inclusion, equity, and opportunity. 3 aspects have to be very critically seen into the scenarios right now.
Yeah.
And, from the, one of the example you mentioned about poor communities in Durgapur.
Yeah.
Right. So that's something I think it's going to be very, very important. And I was actually talking to one of the organizations based out of Chennai, and they are part of the global development organization. So they work with, the poor families, the middle, either the not so privileged kind of community. And they are realizing that suddenly the school, whatever minimum schools they were having, they're gone now.
Yeah.
And they suddenly saw the opportunity of companies like Byju's, companies like online classes coming into them and acquiring their database. And after that free session is over, they comes back to them and ask for the money. And how they are now devoid of that education, because now they've got a taste of it. And they want that quality of education, but they're not having it.
Yeah, see, this is the problem, isn't it? The quality of education, absolutely quality. And I think that this is going to reveal a lot, I think.
Absolutely. And another challenge which is coming in is that now most of these families have lost their jobs, especially the daily wage earners.
Yeah.
They don't have anything to earn right now.
Yeah.
And there are a lot of youth, who are in colleges, and I'm talking about 90% of Indian colleges, whose youth are actually waiting for jobs, right now, and there is going to be a big problem in terms of livelihood.
Indeed. I think, sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead. I'm waiting.
I see India changing dramatically, and I think that these poorer communities are actually going to start demanding more, and rightfully so, more better education, more better rights, more better quality of living. Why do they have to, live and work in cities that are hundreds of and thousands of kilometers away? And I think that they're learning that things can come to them rather than they necessarily have to leave their villages and go there. I think it will create I think it will start to raise the equality between the rich and the poor. And one element of this is that I see with, can you see me? I hope you can. You've frozen there. Okay. I think I saw with amusement that some people are actually learning to do housework for the first time. And, you know, like I can see that there are so many husbands that are learning how to do housework for the first time. And I think that this is going to really start to create an understanding of how difficult life is for those people who make this country function. And people will be valued more because they will be paid more, because people have an understanding of how hard it is. You know, how hard is it to, I mean, not for me, but for many people here who have never done housework and worked full time and done housework and done shopping and cooking and cleaning and all the rest of it. And I think that that's going to create a greater equality across the board. And so I'm an optimist, but I think that that's it. But sorry to go slightly off track there. I think your internet might be a bit slow there, Anshal.
No, you are right. I actually got an. Yeah, there is some challenges at the internet end, but am I audible now?
Yes.
Okay, great. So another aspect which I understood, and I think I won't take too much of your time now. It's quite late, but yes, I've just captured few other points. How to have a sustainable long-term relationship, the focus, how we have to shift it on that. Poor communities, the language issues which needs to be resolved. And now with technology and with various aspects, the reach is going to be better. So I think these language issues can be further resolved. In fact, now we can record or, content in different languages. We can dub it out. We can use the same content, same information, and pass it on to the multiple communities. And I think Dr. Hari was also mentioning that. And the way Indian government is now utilizing TV channels, radio channels to reach out to the masses is going to be very, very important. So the content generation in a multilingual aspect is going to be very, very important.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So that's very important. Another thing which you mentioned about MOU, that how it can be different at a university and how it can be different at a department level, and how it has to be kind of managed better. And of course, the important point, the last but not the least, is track your goals. Monitor, do a self-reflection and a critical evaluation, typically at a daily checkpoint. And that's very important.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I covered most of the aspects.
You summarized well. Maybe you should give my talk next time. I just pass it to you and you can summarize it in a few minutes rather than making people go to sleep.
No, not like that, Dr. Marisha. See, I could capture that information because you were so good in explaining and passionate about it. And the purpose here is that while we capture these pearls of wisdom, it is going to go as a book for people where they can understand many concepts around it. It is going to go in as an e-book for the people, and people will be able to get benefited out of it. That's what the ultimate objective out here is.
Exactly.
So I would really want to thank you, Dr. Marisha, for coming in here, spending almost 2 hours now, almost 2 hours. And wonderful session. I literally enjoyed each of your discussion. I would also want to know if Bringal and or Vision Digital India can be of any help in any of the universities you're working with in terms of content development. We do develop content in augmented reality, virtual reality, 2D, 3D simulations we develop. We have already worked with 50 to 100, 50 plus universities for they're developing their content in for engineering, medical. That typically for these are simulations based. We have also worked with dozens of schools for the virtual labs set up for them. And BringleAcademy.com is a completely first SaaS-based blended learning platform which focuses on end-to-end, automation or integrated platform from live classrooms, live instructor-led classrooms to content curation platforms, e-learning programs, private discussion forums, and one-on-one mentoring.
Oh, cool.
So if you need any kind of support and things like that, I will definitely, reach out to you, and you can definitely reach out to me.
Thank you.
Anyways, Dr. Hari is definitely there, so we can probably have a separate call on that. So I won't take much of your time. Dr. Hari, you there?
There he is.
Yes. So wonderful.
Dr. Hari, you want to say something to Dr. Marisha?
Thank you very much for the wonderful knowledge session, and looking forward for this kind of initiatives in future.
Yeah.
Working with you and as a team.
Yes.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thanks, Dr. Hari. And
looking forward meeting you personally, not through digital. We'll meet soon.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's been almost maybe a year since I saw you last. But
we met in Bombay, the last one.
Yeah, I thought we'd met in Delhi.
Bombay exhibition.
No, it wasn't Bombay. I'm pretty sure it was Delhi, actually.
Oh, yeah, Delhi. Yes.
In Noida.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's JW. Yes.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, it was always a pleasure, and it's always fantastic to see you. And I would like to conclude by saying, it is my honor and my privilege to be able to contribute to higher education or any education at all in India. And if I can make a difference to one small difference to one life, then my time here has been well spent. So, and I thank you so much. Thank you so much, everybody.
Our pleasure and fortune that we connected, and we had a wonderful session.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. Happy weekend.
I have just one request. Dr. Marisha.
Sure.
If you can pass on the message of this, the series to the professors, to the students, to the, the higher management, and if they can participate in these sessions, it would be really, really great. We would be happy to help them out, and because there are another 8 sessions which are pending, which are there. We have, today is the 2nd session. So they can actually get benefited out of it. And we are going to talk a lot about technology, lot about admissions, lot about education system with respect to schools, colleges, university, higher education, and how the technology world is going to make it more impactful and more realistic per se. Is what we are going to talk about. So we would be really glad, and would be required if we can kind of connect with them and bring them on board.
And I think I'll share indeed on the same on LinkedIn. I have a few people on LinkedIn that we could perhaps share it as well. I think that's a good idea.
Sure, and somebody can join in from Australia and other places would be also really great.
That would be good. I'll share it amongst my networks, and I'm pretty sure I can encourage a few of my international friends to come and join in as well. That'd be really good.
Yes, and Dr. Marisha, you are also most welcome to join in for our next sessions. So I think it's a 1 hour spent, and you can actually interact with the industry experts, how they can, what they are doing in their industry, and people are coming in from like, you know, from Australia you are in, you have got a lot of network while you're in India right now. I understand that. But experts are coming in from, last time we had it from USA. We are now getting in blockchain experts. We are getting in people from Singapore. There are people from Switzerland, South Africa, and many more. So we are kind of having a quite a global, you know, experts who are coming in. So it will be a really nice to have a kind of a cross-border kind of discussion on education system. So actually work out much better.
That would be really good. I'll definitely, I've got my teaching and learning community would be absolutely delighted to share their knowledge into the Indian academic community as well. I'll do it. I'll send some emails tonight.
Yes, thank you so much. And what I will do with the emailer for you to kind of share. And for everybody, I think Neha, you are writing up a message on chat. You know, thanks for your feedback, Neha. If you have any questions, you can ask that as well. Okay, so she's saying, thanks for organizing a wonderful session. How can I share the information about this series with my contacts? So Neha, thanks. Dr. Marisha, you want to say something to Neha?
No, it's my pleasure. It's my pleasure to be able to contribute, and I'm glad you enjoyed it and didn't fall asleep, hopefully.
Thanks, Dr. Marisha. Neha here. Thanks, Anshul. From Bengal, I'm really thankful and grateful for this Bengal Academy to give us an opportunity. I'm sorry I was a little bit late to enter this session. So at the starting, I missed just 10 to 15 minutes because I was engaged in another webinar. Okay. Thanks a lot for the information and resourceful session, Dr. Marisha. Excellent. It was excellent. I would like to continue this collaboration with Bringle and you, of course. Thanks a lot.
Thank you. Really appreciate it.
Thank you so much. So Neha and Dr. Jyoti, kindly pass on the link bringleacademy.com/workshop/148. Let them join in over there. People can join in individual sessions as well. And whoever will join the all 10 sessions, they will get a diploma in digital transmission.
Thank you, Anshul.
So
thanks.
From this, thank you so much, everybody. And till then, we'll meet again next week. Till then, keep bringing, keep growing.
Thank you. See you, everyone.